What's up, man? Yeah. And living that talking head. Coming to you live with Daigo, VRified Games. How we doing, Daigo?
Round 1.
I'm round, and I am one. Well, what's your point, man?
Fight.
Hey, well, calm the fuck down.
Hi, Ed. Tekken. We're looking at Tekken 7.
You're looking at Taken. They made 7. There are 6 sequels to Liam Neeson's Taken? How many times they can tell the same story?
No, not Taken. Tekken.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, Tekken, you know. It's a 3D fighter.
Uh-huh.
Namco's kind of competitor to Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Oh man, come on, Ed. There's 8 of them now. Tekken 8 is almost upon us.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, it doesn't ring a bell, man.
Ed, Jesus. Okay. Alright.
Ooh, man, but what the hell is Tekken?
Okay, so way back in the mid to late 90s, there was a craze that sprung up from Street Fighter Mortal Kombat, which everyone wanted a slice of. The 2-player side-on arcade fighter, also known as beat 'em up. Now, Street Fighter was a huge success for Capcom. Everyone was copying the formula of a one-on-one brawler that you could play. So, like, you had Neo Geo with their King of Fighters / Art of Fighting. You obviously had Midway's Mortal Kombat, which was almost like the heavy metal version of Street Fighter. It was more gore, more adult, more graphic, more violent. And there was a host of others. Lots of copycats. Sega and Nintendo got in on the action with the home console. Not only did they do ports, but they did different, I want to say rip-offs, but I don't know if that's even correct. It was rip-off or homage. Anyway, in the mid to late 90s, you walked into a game store, you were flooded with images of these 1v1 fighters, and they were so popular back then, especially in the arcades and later in the home console market. So, in an ocean of copycats, how do you compete? Well, you do something different, okay? So Sega came out the gates with their Virtua series, okay, which was basically 3D polygonal arcade games, which of course they would later be ported to Sega Saturn, etc. But back then they were arcade exclusive, the Virtua series. And you had Virtua Racing, Virtua Tennis, Virtua Cop, and these were all basically 3D versions of already existing 2D games. Like Virtua Cop, for instance, was basically Lethal Enforcers, but in 3D with polygons. Virtua Racing, well, it was basically take your pick of any one of the Formula 1 games that existed at the time, Monaco GP, for instance. And that brings me to Virtua Fighter. Now, Virtua Fighter stood head and shoulders above the competition in terms of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat clones. People paid attention to this because it was in this new polygon 3D technology. And they're like, whoa, this is something different. There even seemed to be like physics involved here now. It would later be revealed that these were canned animations, but they looked very convincing at the time. Now, for all of its bells and whistles and all its coolness, the original Virtua Fighter, although a huge success in both arcades and the home console market, was basically a tech demo, okay? You featured a generic cast of characters, you had all the fighting tropes from the 1v1 fighters that we'd seen to date, and that was basically it. The cool factor being that it was now in 3D. So, Namco takes a look at this and goes, okay, I see what you did there, Sega, I like what you've done, but what if there was more meat on the bones? What if we had an actual storyline? What if we had characters that you could relate to, had backstory that you cared about? Because another one of the factors that made Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat so popular at the time was the mythology that was built up around them. The lore, the storylines. This was almost a new mythology that was being built up. So Namco started shopping around. Hey, we need one of these kind of games. We're going to make it in 3D like Virtua Fighter. What can we do here? And so some creative types got together and Tekken was born. Tekken had moderate success in the arcades. It was really cool. But where it really took off was on the Sony PlayStation 1. The home console market was where Tekken soared. Tekken sold through the roof for the Sony PlayStation 1, because this was something very new. Up until now you could only experience in the arcades thanks to Sega's Virtua series, but you could play this at home now. You know, stick your disc in your machine and you're there. So the original Tekken sold like hotcakes. For many it was considered a system seller for the PlayStation 1. Fantastic success story. And yep, that kind of brings us to where we are today. 6 sequels later to Tekken 7. Tekken 8 is just around the corner. But yep, it is playable with UEVR.
Tekken Tekken 7 here was the first of the Tekken series to be developed on Unreal Engine. So sadly, there are some bugs here because they highly customized the engine, which UEVR doesn't like all that much. So things like UI, character select, your health bars, etc. Menus don't exactly work here. So it's recommended that you use 2D screen to navigate that, and then when you get in game, to load up your VR runtimes. And yeah, right off the bat, it just works. It just works. Your side-on view, you're like a spectator in the crowd watching these guys pummel the shit out of each other.
It has been recommended by Praydog, creator of UEVR, that you download an additional mod, link in the description, called Tekken Overlay. Now, don't be fooled. It does not mean the on-screen bloody health bars, okay? This is a very robust user interface that you can use to adjust many settings within Tekken 7, but the reason Praydog recommends it is because you can uncap the frames per second, which are normally hard-coded to 30, which for some leads to a very uncomfortable experience in VR. So you can uncap it.
But it also has the added bonus for us of a first-person perspective mod. Yeah, so go ahead and download that, alright? Yeah, now to install Tekken Overlay is very simple. Go to the link in the description and download the zip file. Extract that anywhere that's easy for you to remember. Go ahead and run that .exe file. Then run the game. That's it. And if you want to play Tekken 7 in first person, scroll down and click it. There you have it. You're in first person. Now, there are also various camera options within the mod. You might notice your head bobbing a lot. So you can stabilize that somewhat by choosing, say, lock onto your opponent's head. That'll stabilize things a little bit, but you can play around with it. There's a few different options there. Yeah, your mileage may vary. And within UEVR, I would also recommend, while in first person, in the UEVR menu here, choose room scale in the controller settings. This will give you a more comfortable experience where you're moving forward and back in real life. There's also options to adjust the camera. Now, you may or may not need to use this. It all depends on what character you're playing as, because the Tekken characters themselves are all various heights, weights, etc. So you may need to adjust the camera. Very easy. Once in the menu, press and hold the right trigger, and you can move the camera up and down.
So I guess we're gonna leave it there, you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you've any thoughts, queries, any critiques, put them down below. If indeed there are any games you'd like us to look at VRifying in the future, put those down below, and we will presumably get back to you eventually. Round 1. Fight. You can also follow us on TikTok for our adventures over there, which are basically condensed versions of what we do over here. And yeah, follow us on all social medias. All links will be in the descriptions. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you there also. Alright, VRified Games out.